thank you for joining us today for expanding adult education options in Ohio. And I'm so excited to introduce our panelists. We're going to explore how Ohio is reimagining adult education through its network of Ohio Technical Centers, which you'll hear us refer to as OTCs, and through the partnerships. We have an hour-long webinar packed with tons of information on how adult learners can take advantage of these partnerships and how other higher education providers in Ohio can also replicate and provide opportunities like this to their learners as well. This is being recorded, and we do encourage you to share out the recording with folks who may benefit from today's webinar. I am Rachael Mann, and I have the honor of facilitating today's conversation. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to share those. I will be moderating, and at points, if it's appropriate for what is being discussed at that moment, we will go ahead and dive into those questions and respond as part of the webinar, and then we'll have some time at the end for the Q&A as well. Let's go ahead and jump in with introductions for our panelists. First, we have Lisa Tripney, who is a superintendent of Portage Lakes Career Center and has 25 years of experience as an educator. Her experiences span through secondary and adult education. She's built programs, led teams, and championed CTE's power to transform lives. She's always focused on creating extraordinary experiences for every student every day. Next, we have Kelly Herold, who is the Senior Director of Educational Outreach and Adult Focus at the University of Akron, including CCP, which you'll hear more about, CTE partnerships, early college initiatives, the Associate of Technical Studies, and Adult Pathways. She connects learning to credentials, aligning flexible routes to degrees with real workforce opportunity. Next, we have Dr. Lisa Holstrom, who is Senior Associate Director for the Ohio Technical Center Degree Pathways at the Ohio Department of Higher Education. She leads the statewide guarantee that converts OTC clock hour training into college credit, drawing on 20 plus years in higher education administration to open clear credit-bearing pathways for adult learners. And finally, it's my pleasure to introduce Connie Altier. Connie is the Executive Director of Ohio Technical Centers and a 35-year CTE champion. From principal to superintendent, she's launched programs, led major expansions, and shaped state-level policy advocating for adults and secondary learners and the workforce that Ohio needs. We have an incredible group, and I'm so excited to dive in. First, Connie, can you provide a broad overview of Ohio Technical Centers for anyone joining us on the webinar today who may not be familiar with OTCs?
Yes, Rachel. Our Ohio Technical Centers, or our OTCs, they're sort of like the state's network of adult and workforce education providers. We have 50 OTCs across the state, and they're mostly affiliated with some type of education facility, with the majority being in a career and technical center or a career center that also serves high school students. OTCs are designed to serve adult learners individually, but they're set up to have them earn like an industry recognized credential or a license in a program to either learn a trade or technical skill. They're set up to upskill or reskill to advance in their current job. You can complete a high school diploma or a GED through our Aspire programs or with our adult diploma program or 22 plus. And all of these programs are set up to be flexible. That most of them are less than a year with their schooling, and the hours are also flexible because we want to accommodate adults who either work or have families. So we operate like a workforce accelerator, that we're trying to get people back into the workforce or trying to get them a short-term program that's going to advance them, or a hands-on training that will get them an in-demand job in their area. We offer programs that range from healthcare, manufacturing, construction, IT, business, transportation, public safety. And recently, we have a new thing on our OTCs that we've expanded in the OTC Plus world that allows us to get high school students, both high school and adult credit, similar to what is college credit in the college world, a college credit plus. So that's something new that we're doing. OTCs really play a vital role in Ohio's workforce pipeline, where we connect education, industry, and community needs to helping both the youth and adults to gain skills necessary in today's economics and workforce.
I'll just add that you're going to hear us talk a lot about either clock hours or non-credit to credit. So OTCs do measure their training and education in clock hours, whereas the universities, you'll hear talk about semester hours. And I think that non-credit to credit, or even better, non-credit to degree, is really what we're here to talk about today.
And Lisa, if you could also talk to us about adult options. This is something that's so important to really be able to look at industry credentials that are in college credit. What are the pathways that are offered, and maybe even how many credits, just some information about this that you can share with us?
So way back in 2014, the Ohio legislation actually codified the fact that a student completing a program at an OTC that has 900 clock hours or more is guaranteed to receive 30 technical credits towards a technical degree at an public institution of higher ed in Ohio. So we've been building on this legislation now since 2014. And what you see on the slide now are these approved pathways to date. So we've been working with OTCs, with community colleges and universities on how these pathways play out. So right now you see about 23 different programs that OTCs offer. And we have about 37 different pathways for them. A program at an OTC has two components. It has the training, and it also has the embedded credential, the industry recognized credential. And both components become very important when we talk about creating and using these pathways. For a student that completes a program with a credential, and they all have to have credentials by the definition that OTC's programs work. Someone in automotive collision and repair, for example, can use their program and get 30 semester hours towards what is usually at a university or college an associate of technical studies. And I know Lisa and Kelly are going to talk more about this and how it actually works. But from the state level, we approved this pathway, generally speaking, that someone finishing automotive collision and repair will get 30 credit hours towards a technical degree, and that is usually an associate of technical studies. Now, for business and office administration, for example, remember, it's the program and the credential. In business and office administration, there's actually Microsoft credentials that are embedded in those. And those credentials have been evaluated and determined that they are course-specific credit. So someone can get course-specific credit. So the pathway not only goes to an ATS or an Associate of Technical Studies, but it also opens up the door then for that student to do an S or an AAB, an Associate of Applied Science, or in the case of business, an Associate of Applied Business. So both components become very important, both the training that the student receives, but also the credential that they achieve while they're at an OTC, because we call those ITAGs, credentials that have been evaluated by faculty and aligned with specific college coursework in our public colleges and universities.
Thank you so much. That gives such a picture of how much is available. Wow. Just so many opportunities. And it's so important that we let folks know about these and how they can really advance their trajectory through these opportunities. Next, for stackable credentials, how can high school students or OTC students get a head start? Lisa, can you talk about that as well?
Yes. So especially when it comes to those embedded credentials that students are receiving, it is important to understand that some of them are stackable. And I know that Portage Lakes and the University of Akron are going to talk a little bit about LPN to RN. And that's a really good example of a credential that stacks and how that progresses. Some of the other ones that are stackable, like in the field of information technology, certainly in other places where they really build on one another. And A high school student may earn these as in the career tech area, in the CTAG area, but they're also then portable and they carry with them into the community college or the university level. And if they've been equated to college credit, then they get credit for that course. So it's saving them time and money when they get to the academic degree. And it gives them a chance to upskill as well. So as they stack these and saving time and money, they may decide that they want to pick up some additional skills. And this gives them the space in their curriculum to build those extra skills in.
So, for an example, a high school student may earn their CNA and then they may go into the OTC world and get their LPN. And then that can transfer on over to the college that they're going to be taking credit for when they're getting their RN at the college level. And the same thing with fire EMS. They might get their fire 1 or fire 2 at the high school or the OTC level. And then they may be able to go over and get their paramedic or different degree at the college level. And a lot of times it's going to allow them to get that associate's degree in less than a year or a year based on what they did either at the high school or the OTC level.
There are so many opportunities. So exciting to hear about what all is available. Next, let's talk about pathways that you have created for OTC students that support their career goals and who was involved. Kelly, can you talk about your work on this? And we'd also love to hear from Lisa Tripney as well.
Sure. We at the University of Akron have been working with the Associates of Technical Studies Option B for probably at least 25 years, long before the one-year option sort of came to be codified here in Ohio. And it was important for us to take a look at where students had credentials and experience, but not necessarily a pathway into college. Around that same time, we were approached by Akron Fire Department, whose union had voted in new rules. And in order to be promoted, you had to have a minimum of an associate's degree. The interim chief at the time did not have that. And so we were able to bring the Associate of Technical Studies up, work with everybody in their credentials, and be able to assist our city in being able to move forward and promote from within. Since that time, we have worked very closely with our career tech partners at the high school level and at the adult level at the Ohio Technical Centers, and develop those pathways for every program that is offered, both at the high school and at the adult level, with multiple pathways. And one thing that's been very unique for us is that our Associate of Technical Studies is not a terminal degree. We have developed pathways directly into our Bachelor of Science degrees, Bachelor of Arts degrees, and our applied bachelor degrees as well.
I think one of the most wonderful opportunities in the last few years to come about with those pathway developments has been the momentum builder from LPN, which we offer here at the Career Center, to the RN, the BSN at the University of Akron. Akron has always been a phenomenal partner with us, and so it just seemed natural to bring this idea to the table to be able to matriculate credits to our LPNs that they could just take to the University of Akron. And so our innovative program there is that our LPN students can now move forward to get their RN in 3 years as opposed to 4 years, because they're getting some credit and some acknowledgement for the hard work and effort that they put in as an LPN student and ultimately as an LPN when they pass that NCLEX and they obtain that license. So I think really a lot of this pathway development is about keeping that momentum. Oftentimes you're talking about people who aren't necessarily comfortable in school. The idea of higher education is daunting to them. So if we can give them little rewards, little carrots along the way, that not only helps to keep that momentum going, but it builds their confidence. These are not generally folks that have been successful in a traditional environment. So by creating these pathways with lots of different options and lots of opportunities, we can give them a break when they need a break. We can push them through when they want to be pushed through, but we can also acknowledge and applaud the hard work that they've done and reward them by pushing them further down this pathway. And that's really what it's all about. But I think one of the biggest things that I want to mention is that with OTCs and higher ed, I guess the shift in thinking needs to be, it's not about competition. It's about how we can complement each other to ultimately create pathways that are best for students. So not competition, but complementing each other.
And if it's okay, I'd like to touch on something that Lisa said, that ability to not feel comfortable sometimes. And what we've been able to do, especially with this LPN to RN, is our UA faculty has worked very closely with the faculty at Portage Lakes. We actually are guest speakers. So we will maybe come in and be a guest lecturer so that students start to feel familiar with our faculty. They start to feel comfortable, and that transition becomes much less daunting after the LPN has been completed.
To add to that too, with an OTC, we tend to be smaller. So we can do a lot of that hand-holding and that confidence development before we turn them out into a bigger environment where they might feel originally they've been lost in the shuffle. So at the OTC level, we're excellent at developing skills and confidence so that when they move over to a bigger higher education institution or a larger community college, they have developed those self-advocacy skills, they have developed those study skills, they have developed a bit of a network so that they're able to be stronger and more confident in a bigger environment.
What an incredible system of support. And I can imagine that part of the work is just getting the word out there. So, how do students find out about these opportunities? How do you partner around outreach to students so they're aware of the pathway? And Lisa, can you continue on and share some about how you let people know what's out there for them?
We begin in the marketing phase. So right when we start with admissions, we begin telling students what those future opportunities are, that it doesn't have to end here, that it begins here, and that we have developed pathways for you and will help you on that transition. As Kelly mentioned, Dr. Tim, as he's fondly known around here, he's here a lot. So our students are very comfortable with him. Kelly has been here frequently. She knows our building, she knows our staff, she knows what we do. So those partnerships are crucial from the OTC to the higher education world to making sure that not only are the students comfortable, but that the staff is aware of where the students are going to, the staff is aware of the resources and who to call when the students end up at a different institution. It's all about that relationship building and those partnerships. Our doors are always open. The same would be true for Stark State. We have wonderful articulation agreements with our local community college, but those relationships need to exist and doors need to be open. But again, we start at the very beginning because it's all about starting and then building that momentum and confidence to push these folks as far as they possibly want to.
And some of this of why we're having this webinar is OACs and the OTCs. We want to promote this. We've been working with Lisa, having Lisa come out and talk to the directors. She's been talking to the community colleges, that we really want everybody to know that this is available and promote this because we think it's a great opportunity for the adults, especially those that are a little hesitant to go in to get that associate's degree, that we can show them those accomplishments and those successes to lead them on to get the associate degree.
And how else are you using the ATS to help adult students get to the graduation stage? And Kelly, can you also just remind us what ATS is? And
Sure. Before I go into that, I would like to just kind of to plug the University of Akron here for a minute. We're unique in that we have an adult focus office, and it is for anyone who's over the age of 24 or who has sat out of school for a year. So we do see students who are younger than 24, but the majority of our population is over the age of 24. That group spends a lot of time tabling. And so we start tabling, I think it's next week at Portage Lakes. I know that we've got some dates at Medina, some dates at Cuyahoga Valley Career Center for the adult population in the evening. So I did want to kind of plug that. The Associate of Technical Studies, and for us, it's option B, is a degree that is 60 credits. And 30 of those credits can come from industry credential, certification, or workforce training. And the other 30 must come from the Gen Ed package. So a lot of our students have been in school at some point in their life, and have gone on and done something else. And now they're coming back and they've got that life experience, they've got those credentials, they've got those certifications, and they are able then to parlay that into college credit. Absolutely in the Associate of Technical Studies, option B, but we have had some success in other degree pathways as well. But like I said earlier, it's very important for us to have a pathway for students who want to go from an associate's degree into that bachelor's degree level and beyond.
One other thing is our OTCs are also working with business and industry, and we're trying to encourage them to be able to get some of these industry credentials and even get funding through tech cred through the state. And that way they can upskill some of their employees in their businesses so that if they need that associate degree, like was mentioned earlier, that we can do that. We can upskill them and be able to do that and promote within, which is very important to our businesses and our people in our community also.
Sure. Lisa Holstrom had shared the slide of the programs that are approved for the 30 credits, but we also have a formula that ODHE, Ohio Department of Higher Ed, allows us to use to evaluate any sort of certification or credential. So we may have something that's not on that list, but we are able to kind of investigate that and then utilize the formula to give credits towards those certifications and licenses.
Really an important point, Kelly, is that, we have these guarantees for students, but if a student comes in with something that isn't on the guaranteed list, we always encourage our higher ed partners to use their prior learning policies and evaluate the program that the student is, or the credential that the student is bringing, because no one wants the student to have to pay or learn something again, especially when they've got a credential or some proof that they've successfully mastered that competency or content. So I think that it's been really interesting as we move forward in this, but how the list will expand, right? I mean, that's not a finite list by any means. And we're finding where these PLA agreements or prior learning assessment agreements are becoming more popular. And then we can look at those for addition to the guarantee list. But we're always encouraging our higher ed partners, do the best for the student while retaining the academic integrity and the academic policies that you have in place.
Thank you, Lisa. We talked some about outreach, but when we think about promoting and marketing, what is happening to promote this and ensure that learners know that this pathway exists? Even at what point do you talk to students? What are the entry and exit points? And Lisa, if you could share a little bit about this.
All of our OTC admissions begin with the discussion of those pathways. So the students are informed right away, and that's the end goal, is either getting them employed or having them employed and moving further beyond onto that pathway in higher education. I'll also say that another thing that we do regularly is promote these with our advisory councils. And I think that's something that our OTC partners need to make sure that they're taking advantage of. That's a huge tool. It's a secret weapon in our arsenal, where we meet with dozens of employers, where we include our higher ed partners on those meetings. And that's really where the nuts and bolts of our programs are discussed. So it makes a heck of a lot of sense to let all those people know that these things exist. Oftentimes, those employers are the ones that we send our students to, but those are also the people that come to us for upskilling or that send us their current employees. So that really is the most logical place to begin those conversations.
I'll add a little bit. As an agency, we don't have a lot of direct contact with students. We partner with our institutions around this, but what we're finding is that sometimes the trickle-down effect isn't effective. And, so how do we help our partners reach the students directly? But also maybe there are more things that we could be doing to get directly to students. So we've been exploring different ideas, talking to like the firefighter union president and getting in front of the unions in our state. Almost all of those things that you saw on the slide probably have unions attached to them, and they're all about professional development of their membership. So, we're talking about that as a possible avenue. I love Lisa's idea about the advisory groups, because they're the ones that are encouraging the upskilling. They may have money to help offset tuition costs. So that is really another important group in this. We've created on our website, which we'll send a link in the follow-up email, but we've created a brochure, kind of a checklist for adult learners that OTCs can put in their welcome packets or their recruitment packets or their graduation completion packets, because these completers are looking to join the workforce. They're not necessarily looking to immediately begin a degree. And how do we keep them tied to that thought? That, oh, that's right, this is worth a college credit. This can save me half an associate degree in time and money. Oh my gosh, that's part-time? That's 2 years of time saved. So how do we keep that in front of them and keep reminding them about these kinds of opportunities? And that's a challenge, but it does take it takes more than a village. It takes a small city. I mean, to really bring all the stakeholders together and think about, everybody doing their outreach.
And if I can add to that, we have begun doing what I like to call prospective pop-ups. So we may have special hours when you can just come in and get an unofficial evaluation of your credentials without having to make a commitment. But we also do pop-ups with our local companies. I know we spend a lot of time in our local hospitals. The Akron Fire Department has what they call run review once a year. And every firefighter and paramedic is required to go through training on those days. And they've invited us out. So we are there able to do these unofficial reviews of your credentials and your other credits. And I think that's really important. The other thing that I think is very important is sharing the story. We all have success stories. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but we've got success stories and students who have done amazing jobs with a different, non-traditional way. And so I think sharing those stories with other students, with your business advisory council, with others, so that others can see. I will tell you that a lot of the students that I get to see have been referred by another student who's had a successful experience in the pathway.
Part of the reason why we wanted to do this broadcast today is so that we can share the story out. And on the OACs level, we've been working with Lisa to try to make sure that not only are OTCs educated about this, but our high school guidance counselors. So that's one of Lisa's next steps that she's going to do, is talking to those high school guidance counselors so that they understand how these credentials work. And coming to the OTC, that student who's reluctant to go to college, that maybe they feel more comfortable continuing on at the OTC level. And that way they can get them to that college level. And then again, like we've talked about business advisory committees, and we've talked about, trying to talk to them about tech cred. There's so many resources out there that we just need to make sure to get that word out and make sure that everyone understands what is available. So that's what we're trying to promote with this today.
Kelly and Connie, thank you so much for mentioning the stories, because as I'm hearing this, I can't help but think how this is changing people's lives. Like how many people that I know of that this could have made such an impact on them if they knew about these opportunities, if they had heard other people's success stories. So let's go ahead and dive into some really thinking about how students earn this and understanding how it works, and sharing those inspiring examples of students who have transitioned from a clock hour OTC program into college credit and then on to a thriving career. Can you start off with us, Lisa T., about the impacts that you've seen and some real world outcomes that may motivate others?
I think one of the reasons most of us are involved in adult education is because we absolutely believe that adult education changes people's lives. While we do impact students greatly in the high school, we see people who have lived a little bit of life, who have taken some hard knocks, and they've jumped back in and they're willing to try again. And so that is a fantastic part about coming into work every day. I have a million stories, but I can say, particularly in our nursing program, we oftentimes have folks that have dreamed of being a nurse for years. They've started as an STNA. They have worked that job for many years, and I can say that job takes quite a toll on the body. And so they come to the LPN program. I have one that I'm thinking of in particular. She was in her mid-40s when she came, was an STNA, came to our LPN program, actually matriculated to the University of Akron, sadly, before we had our wonderful partnership with the 3-year BSN. But she then moved on to get her BSN and then her MSN. And so that is a shining example of someone who had to delay life for a while because other things got in the way, and decided at what point in her life that she could make herself a priority, and then exceeded all of our expectations. I think anyone in adult ed will be able to tell that story 400 times, because that is why we continue to show up to work. And I will say it again, adult ed truly does change lives. This educational opportunity changes things for people, and in that regard, changes for their family and their children, and for their children and beyond. That's just how education works, and that is the power of getting these people back into our building.
I have a couple stories. I'm working with a gentleman right now who went through a career center, adult technical center, adult ed program, obtained a job with a local company that the University of Akron has a partnership with, and he went on to get his apprenticeship, 4-year apprenticeship, journeyman's card, and now he wants to be able to move up within the company off the manufacturing floor. So I met with him this week. He is able to move right into the Associate of Technical Studies. He had some college credit from when he was right out of high school, and able to move right into that. He'll need, I think, 1 course, and then he's already had some work experience evaluated to move into a bachelor's in organizational supervision. So that's one that we're working with right now. I also have a young lady who received her cosmetology license. She was being raised by her grandmother, and at the time, grandmother passed away right before high school graduation. She had accumulated some credits, had gone on to a COS program at an OTC, came to us, was able to finish a bachelor's, an associate's and a bachelor's in 2 years, and is now the very successful owner of a nail salon here in Akron. And she is employing and training others who would come from situations just like her. So to see those in action, we utilize her a lot to talk to students about what you can do.
And the nice thing about the cosmetology program, it's a 1,500-hour program, either through the high school or through an OTC. So that's equivalent to 30 credit hours at the college. So they only have to do the additional 30 to be able to obtain their associate degree. So that's an easy, and especially when they need that to be able to be an owner of a salon.
I would like to just kind of talk to the instructors. We've had a lot of adult ed instructors come to us and talk about, what can I do to get my degree? They've been teaching, they teach at the adult level. They may not have completed an associate's degree, or they did, but they bump on the pay scale, or just for personal validation, I guess. And we've had a lot of adult ed instructors from across the state reach out. We've worked with somebody who is a dental assistant, a lot of COS teachers, somebody that's teaching in manufacturing, and just having that ability to let them, kind of see what this looks like, and then they can share their story with their students as well.
And the other nice thing about this program is it's still growing, where that Lisa's working to add additional credentials, looking at if there's new things coming that we can still promote this in areas that maybe there's a high demand job. So it's not just centralized to Akron, it's all across the state with all of the colleges and all of the OTCs.
Let's talk about some of the wraparound services, because we know that for adult learners, there's just so many things that they're thinking through, whether it's supporting a family, supporting their children, and how do I have time to go back to school? So what supports have you implemented to assist adults throughout their educational journey, thinking through navigating tuition, scholarships, aid? These are things that can be daunting for adult learners who are just juggling so much. So if you could start for us, Kelly, on talking about some of the resources that your institution provides to help students finance their education and to work through some of these other services, and then everyone else can chime in as well.
Sure, absolutely. Like I said, we are lucky to have an office of adult focus. which does afford us the opportunity to really focus in on those adult learners. We have a separate lounge in our office where there are computers available, a printer. They can come in for assistance. We offer financial aid workshops so that we can provide that assistance. We have scholarships. We have a connection with College Now out of Cleveland that does adult ed scholarships as well, and they are right across the hall. So we have the ability to walk students across the hall to help them. For our students who are online, we have e-tutoring, which is live, starts at 4 o'clock in the evening and it runs through the night, but it is a live person to help you with any sort of trouble that you're having in any subject area. During the day, we also have in-person tutoring for our students as well. Childcare sometimes is an issue, and the university has partnered with our YMCA organizations to help provide for childcare. But little things rise, to the top. Food insecurity right now is a very large thing on our campus, especially as the weekend looms, making sure that our food cupboards in our buildings are full and stocked for our students, and then assisting our students with social services that they may need in addition to their education.
I'll simply reiterate something that I mentioned earlier in that OTCs are a great starting point for folks because we do tend to be a little bit smaller and we can take the time to do a little bit more hand-holding and walk people through so that they can develop that confidence that they're going to need when they move on somewhere else. That is really one of the benefits of starting at an OTC is that individualized one-on-one attention. Many of us have our financial aid in-house, so there is someone that they can directly speak with and walk through that process with. While it's supposed to be easier, it's still incredibly daunting for folks, and they have a lot of questions. So that's something that all of us do very well in-house. In addition, we have our admissions rep that they get to know very well. Our instructors have very small class sizes, so a lot of that concern about being in a higher education environment is broken down with an OTC experience because they get more comfortable in the land of higher education.
I think we also have the availability to connect these adults with agencies that can support them. Either if they need remediation, we have Aspire on a lot of our OTC campuses. Some of the colleges even have that. But also if they need resources through HAPCAPS or your Job and Family Services, we have all those connections, both at, because we're supporting those adult learners that are coming back and we want them to be successful. So we try to make all those resources readily available for them. A lot of us have clothing closets, food closet, or things that we have the resources all to help these individuals be successful. We do job fairs. Sometimes we do them together with the colleges, but all of this is to try to promote these adult learners to be successful.
And we do have a question that came in from someone in our audience. Kim is asking, and this is specifically for you, Kelly, does Akron University offer an online opportunity for the AAS, ATS, or AB options?
We do not have an AAB, so we have an Associate of Arts, an Associate of Science, and an Associate of Technical Studies, all of which are available online.
That's incredible too, because I can imagine that is a huge support to be able to have that flexibility to be able to do that through an online option.
It's a really good question. And I think it really dovetails nicely with the question that we just answered about services, right? Is that these adults often have work lives, they have home lives, and really online education may be the only thing that is keeping them in school and progressing and being retained. So, and getting them to the graduation stage. So these online courses or online degree completer programs are really important.
Next, just thinking through the continuing efforts to educate counselors, colleges, and I know you mentioned counselors earlier, but just again, getting that word out. Connie, can you talk to us about this?
Well, I mentioned earlier that we have been out at making sure all the directors of the OTCs understand this. And we've even had Lisa come talk to the superintendents at each one of the centers, because the big thing is the communication of this, and making sure that they understand it's here so we can communicate that out to the learners and to be able to understand that they can have this option. And I believe Lisa is also working with the colleges. That's where her and Kelly come in with this, that to make sure that they are, when the student comes to work with them, how they react and interact with them, and asking them those questions on, do you have industry credentials? What ones do you have? Do they relate to the degree that you're going to have here or that you're trying to pursue?
Our dream is that no student will leave an OTC, go to a community college or university, sit down with someone and say, hi, I have this program, this credential, and have that person say, I have no idea what you're talking about. So our dream is that everyone will be able to respond positively to that transcript or licensure credential that the student is presenting and be knowledgeable about it. And that's a challenge in itself. I mean, number one, some of these positions turn over. There is a lot of ongoing education that needs to happen, and we're getting better about that. I also wanted to mention here that we're doing work with the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, that we have prison facilities in Ohio where colleges and universities are very active, and the prison facilities are doing similar trainings or are even accredited as by the same accrediting agency as an OTC. So they are training these students while incarcerated because they need jobs, right? I mean, that's the whole, we want them to go and work and not come back. So we are working with them as well to make sure that the transition, for those students who want degrees after they finish their incarcerated training, have those same opportunities and those same guarantees in place. So that's another place where communication has really been important, and working with DRC and our colleagues there, as well as our community college and university partners, to understand that these students are eligible for the same credit guarantees and the same application of policies and academic integrity that are in place in our higher ed institutions.
That's so important, to give people another chance, not just, okay, now you're released, but now you can be successful and continue your life. So I love hearing that. That's such an important piece. Well, next we're going to do a rapid fire round, which doesn't necessarily have to be rapid. 1 to 2 minutes. What do you want our audience to know about adult options in Ohio? And Kelly, can you start this out for us?
I think what's important for me to share is that there are affordable options for higher ed for students who want to continue on, and it doesn't have to happen immediately. There are lots of places where you can, we talked about jumping on the train or jumping on the highway, where you can hop on and hop off as life happens. And we're here for you when you're ready with the experience that you've gained along the way. So I think that's just very important, that there's, it's affordable and your experience matters.
I would second that. Not only does your experience matter, your experience is a huge asset. You're able to think in different ways and more maturely than a great deal of people that we see that go right into college. So give yourself some credit where credit is due. As I say to all of my adult students, don't be afraid of taking the chance. Be afraid of waiting forever and never doing it. That's where you need to be frightened. We are here to meet you where you are. We will help you in any possible way that we can. And there is a whole team across the state that is completely invested in your success. Don't be afraid of asking questions. Don't be afraid of coming to campus. We are here to help you make changes and improvements to your life. That is what we do. So whenever you're ready, give us a call or knock on that door, because we'll have an option that fits your life.
All right, my mouth hurts from smiling so much. These have just been such great answers to listen to. I think from a state perspective, we know that adults need options. And so, saying that there's only one pathway for students really doesn't acknowledge the broad experiences and work experiences and personal experiences that adults bring to the academic setting. So when we looked at creating pathways, we looked at, Associate of Applied Science, Associate of Applied Business, but also that Associate of Technical Studies, because we would love to see community college and universities really leverage that ATS to help students, because it is a create your own major kind of degree that can accommodate these trainings from OTCs. And they don't have to, ATSs don't have to be low enrolled if you're really partnering well with your local OTC and creating these types of pathways for adults for whom this is appropriate. They may want an AS, they may want to upskill, they may want that pathway, and that's great too. Saying that all of these pathways are great, not that one's better than the other, but acknowledging the fact that adult students need options, and the fact that from a state level, we can guarantee that a student shows up at a public institution of Ohio with their transcript, and we can guarantee that credit to be applied towards the degree, not just acceptable, but applicable. And that's a really important distinction in my world. So thank you.
Well, one of the things that, being in education for 35 plus years, it's been about the students. And this adult options really makes it about the student, that it allows them to be able to jump on or jump off the ramp at any time they want with this. If they want to go straight into the workforce, they've got some of those credits that they can put back in their pocket to use for later when maybe life's a little bit better for them. But high school students, adult students, it's there and it's stackable and it's ready for them to be able to make a better living for themselves, for their family. And those opportunities all start with us being able to work together and letting the business and the industry know what this is about, and make sure that these adults know that there are options that they have. And there might be some adults out there that already have some of these credentials that they didn't know that they could continue on with, and that they could contact an OTC or they could contact one of the colleges to see what options they have out there. I love it that Akron and Kelly have those options, that they can just come in and look at what they have and see what they could do. Doesn't necessarily mean they have to, but at least they know their options then.
And Connie, speaking of reaching out, can you share with us how people can contact your organizations? How do they get in touch? How do they reach out to the right person to be able to get these wonderful services that we've talked about today?
Well, on the OTC side, ohtechcenters.com, that is the website that we promote all of the OTCs in the state. And there's a link in there under About Us that you can actually put your address, and it will give you the locations of the nearest OTCs to you. And in the near future, it will also have, if you want to look at manufacturing, it will bring up all of the programs that just have manufacturing or cosmetology. And then on Lisa's end, your website has some information also.
Yeah, so I'll put a couple links in the chat. One is for institutions, and then one is really student facing. So you kind of have a choice, that because we know institutions need a little more of the nitty gritty background information and how to post the credit, and students really need to know how to ask and receive the credit. So the two websites are kind of a little similar information, but framed differently for the different audiences.
And also your adult options website also has scenarios, so they could see, like, for each different pathway, how many possible credits they could earn, what are some scenarios that they could do to get different types of degrees. So they're very helpful websites also.
Great. So yeah, when you click on either one of these, the approved pathways will get you all of the programs that are on that were on that slide, and with complete pathway documents showing students exactly what kind of credit they would receive if they had finished that program, and then what they would have left to finish in order to get to the graduation stage, depending on the program that they completed at an OTC. So it's very helpful, and that page is called Approved Pathways.
And for the folks who are listening in, we will be sending this in the follow-up email to everyone who registered. So if you're not seeing it in the chat, not to worry, you're going to get this information, and please share it out with others who may benefit from this. Just such fabulous resources and opportunities that So many people just don't even know what's out there. And we have just a few minutes left, but I would love to give our panelists another opportunity. What else do you want folks to know about adult options in Ohio?
Well, again, we want to make sure everybody understands that there are these options and where they need to go, what they need to do to be able to use them. And we want the success of the adults in Ohio and our workforce as strong as we can possibly make it.
I'll just piggyback on that then, and kind of what I'm hoping is an outcome of our webinar today is that those of you who are working at OTCs and community colleges look across the street or across your town or across your city and say, you know what, we can do what Lisa and Kelly are doing. Why don't we do this? And, get your provost, your curriculum people, your teachers and your faculty together and hammer out some agreements that honor the guarantees, but really show students specifically what credit they're going to get, or add something that isn't on the guarantee and that is a popular pathway, so that students understand upfront what credit they're getting and what the next steps would be when they finish.
I would echo that for sure. One of the reasons that we've been successful here at Portage Lakes is because we have such a good relationship with Kelly and the folks at the University of Akron, and they've invested so much time in making sure that relationship is a quality one, is good for students, and they invest their time and their support in Portage Lakes Career Center. I would also say that we know that our students are going to be local. So when you mention crossing the street and making those relationships, it's so clear that if our student starts here, they'll end up going there and then going there in this local area. It's so important that we see each other as complements to each other for the benefit of our students and our greater community. It's so important to take that competition word out and to really focus on how we can enhance student experience and create pathways for students for whatever point they're on, so that it's easier for them and will ultimately benefit them. And as we all know, then our local communities.
I have two phrases. One, the power of the place. And I think it's very important for our adult students and even our high school students to be where they feel most comfortable and then be able to explore what else is available for them. The other one is the culture of success. Everyone that I have worked with, especially Lisa, it's always about the success of our students. Our adults can do it. They can, our high school students can do it, and everyone can. It's just creating that culture of success, creating that culture of support and the power of the place so that the student feels most comfortable where they need to be at that specific time.
Thanks so much to each of you as panelists, not only for joining us today for this hour to share out these amazing opportunities, but for the work that you do every day to truly transform lives and provide opportunities that is going to be very far reaching. And thanks so much for our attendees for tuning in. Again, this will be shared out as a recording. Please spread the word and share out with the folks in your community. We'll also share out the links that were mentioned in the webinar. And we also have to thank OACs, the Ohio Association of Career and Technical Superintendents, who, because of them, were able to provide this excellent content to continue to make public the great work that's happening in Ohio. Thanks again, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thank you.